Good morning. Welcome, folks. L'chaim. So, want to learn. Oh, excuse me. Just someone's at the door. Okay. Got that. Doing some work over here. So we finished the mimer, and I want to give over. Actually, Sikha now. So, in the laws of converts, the Rambam writes, Maimonides in the Mishnah Torah, there are three things that the Jewish people entered into the covenant, right? There are three things. It was circumcision, immersion in the mikvah, and bringing a sacrifice. And as we see the verses from this week's Torah portion, actually, in Mishpatim. So from here, we learn, as the Jewish people, in a sense, were converts at Mount Sinai. Being Jewish now became soul-based rather than faith-based. So we're no longer a faith-based religion. In other words, if you threw your lot with the Jewish people and you believed and, so on and so forth, then you were part of the Jewish people. At Mount Sinai, that all changed. It now became a soul that you got. So likewise, anybody who wants to enter into the covenant and become Jewish, they have to do these three things. They have to do circumcision, go to the mikveh, and bring an offering on the altar. As it says later on, Kechem keger, just like you, so is the convert. So just as the Jewish people needed these three things, likewise the convert also needs these three things. Again, circumcision, milah, tefillah, going to the mikvah, immersion in a mikvah, and bringing an offering on the altar. After that, writes the Rambam in a separate halacha that in this time where we don't have the holy temple and you can't bring a sacrifice, so all we have is milah and tefillah. And when the holy temple will be built, then the convert should bring an offering. Okay, from this is understood that now the two things of circumcision and mikvah is sufficient for a person to become a complete convert. Right, but there still belongs an obligation that when the base of Mikdash, the holy temple, will be built, that one has to bring an offering. Okay, fine. Um, so in the reasoning for this law is because now the convert becomes a complete convert only through these two things, even though that in the times of the Holy Temple there were three things, right? And in the times of the Holy Temple, if someone converted, in other words, they had circumcision, they went to the mikvah, which of course circumcision doesn't apply to women, so it's just going to the mikvah. Then you are like all those that are fitting proper Jewish people. Um, yeah, so in another place the Rambam writes, right, this is all that which is lacking of bringing the sacrifice means that the person can't eat holy sacrifices because they did not become uh, like those that are proper Jewish people in bringing the sacrifice, and because the sacrifice wasn't brought, right? So, right, the Rogachover on this Rambam, so um, he says terminology that needs to be understood. The terminology that he uses that only in regard to the holy offerings is a person still called a person is not called Israel Gomer, complete Jew. But for all the other things, they are like a Jew in every aspect, and therefore in this time that we don't have the Holy Temple, they're not missing anything at all. They're not missing anything at all. Now, so Rebbe is bothered by these words of the Rogachover. He says that they're not a complete Jew only in regard to the sacrifice. The Rebbe asks, you know, either you're a complete Jew or you're not or you're not a Jew. What does it mean not to be 100%? Right. Now, we understand that the person couldn't eat from holy sacrifices, right? Okay, that we get until they bring the sacrifice. But now that we don't have it here at this time, but to call the person not a complete Jew, how does that make sense? As if they're not Jewish for the sacrifice? You can't be partially Jewish. Yeah, yeah. Furthermore, we see that the Rambam himself, this is Rogachover trying to explain the Rambam. We see that the Rambam himself, he writes it's a famous letter to Rebbe Vajia, the convert. And he writes him and says to him that you have a greater virtue as a convert than I do as born as a Jew. And he says, because, my Jewishness comes from my forebearers, right, from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and you are connected directly to the Creator of the world in your Jewishness. So, if that's the case, And Rambam is, he's saying he's not suggesting in any manner that he's lesser of a Jew because he didn't bring a sacrifice. And therefore, he's not trying to flatter him in any way. He's saying the truth, and the truth is that he's 100%, 100% a Jew. So, what is his terminology then? That the Rogachev is learning is taking out from the Rambam that would suggest, or at least in the suggestion, that there's something lacking, and it's not completed, it's not full. How would you understand that? Okay, so perhaps we could learn as follows. Now, it is true, Mashiach comes now, so the convert would not be able to eat from a holy sacrifice because they haven't brought their own sacrifice. But it's not because there's anything lacking in them. So the terminology in the Talmud there is like, the terminology is a lion that's crouching and not allowing. In other words, there's something outside of you that's not allowing you, but it's not because you are lacking anything. So the lion is crouching and not letting you go through, So here, there's something outside of you, of the convert, that's not allowing them to do this act of bringing of eating from holy sacrifices. What is it? That they didn't bring a sacrifice. But it's not what's making them Jewish. Right? This is the terminology that he uses over here. And yet, we need to understand, okay, so in other words, there's the person themselves, the convert, that Rebbe is saying is 100% Jewish, but there's something outside of them, a circumstance, this lion, right? This is the terminology that the Talmud uses, that is holding them back from being able to do something. And in this instance, bringing the sacrifice, right? Right, so it's not of them. However, we still have to understand the language in the Rambam. The language in the Rambam, he says that the offering withholds him from being ger gomer, a complete convert. And because of that, he's not able to eat from holy sacrifices. So it makes it sound like there's something not complete here. So what we need to understand this. So the Rebbe says, well, we have to be actually very exacting in the terminology of the Rambam. He says it's withholding. It's holding back from being complete. He's not saying that the sacrifice makes you into the convert, the complete convert. It's holding back. In other words, it's holding back because it's holding back from something. It's holding back from one thing about being able to eat from holy sacrifices in times of the Holy Temple. Right? So the Rebbe explains like this. What enters you into the covenant? Two things. Circumcision and immersion in the mikvah. That's what brings you in, right? Into the covenant. Now there's something that's holding back. Oh, holding back is like that lion that is crouching and not letting you to get through to go, where you need to go. But it's not bringing you in to the into the home. It's not bringing you. It's like into a home. You want to walk into your home, but you have an obstacle before the home that won't let you get into the home. Your home is your home. There's just an obstacle that doesn't let you get in. Right. So what doesn't let you become Jewish is if you don't have circumcision and immersion in the mikvah. That's what's necessary, right? But to remove an obstacle that's outside of you, right? That's not making you who you are. It's not making you full and complete, right? But it doesn't make you who you are. So let's understand what's going on over here and why he uses this term complete convert, right? When you're complete as a Jew, but you're not complete as a person. What makes you complete as a Jew, as we just mentioned, is the two things, right? Circumcision takes away the negativity of the foreskin, right? And immersion is what brings in the divine soul. That's what makes and defines you. By the way, just of course you have to have commitment to Judaism and so on and so forth. Right? We're talking about the three things that are necessary, for the totality. But now bringing a sacrifice. What's the idea of a sacrifice? Sacrifice in Hebrew means korban. Is korban. Korban comes from the word kiruv, means closeness. What it means is to bring the closest of the powers of your soul. Sorry, 1 second. Oh boy. To bring the closest the powers of your soul to God. So what defines your soul is circumcision and immersion in the mikvah. That defines your soul. That defines you as a Jew, complete Jew, not a question. Now, to be a complete person is to take the powers of your soul and bring them close to God. What's the powers of the soul? Meaning your love and awe of God, and bring them close to God. That we don't have now. Why? Because we don't have sacrifices. So what does it mean we don't have that? It means in the times of the Holy Temple, you came to the Holy Temple and it inspired you in such a way that you felt the closest to God. And it brought you to the love and awe of God by just being in that. Today we don't have the love and awe of God in the way it was in the past. We don't experience it in such a way. But we have the core of the soul. And what's the core of the soul? That you're totally devoted to God. That we do have. Because that's my total self-worth and self-being. That the convert has totally. That's why now we don't have the bringing the sacrifice, because the sacrifice means bringing the powers of my intelligence and my emotions to bring them close to God. We're living at times that our eyes don't see, our hearts don't feel, but our soul is totally connected, and therefore what the soul, the essence of the soul, brings us to is to complete commitment, complete sacrifice for Hashem. That we do have. And the convert has that totally. So in a sense, it's not just the convert that doesn't have the power of the sacrifice. Any Jew doesn't have that. A Jew who's born as a Jew doesn't have that either, because we're living in times of exile where we don't have the sight, the feelings that were there from previous times. And therefore, they're totally Jewish. So much so that someone who converts and then, opts out from Judaism, they're completely Jewish, like anybody who was born a Jew. All right, folks. Thank you. We'll see you as soon as possible.